Chuka's topic a couple of episodes ago, where you said people continue to quote, almost like they don't have a mind of their own. Okay. It's a regurgitation.
No, I want to comment there.
No, I'm even saying about our people. No, what I'm saying is, what you're saying is that it applies to us as a people the way we
But I want to disagree with that, because I think the problem we have in Nigeria is that actually I think people know the law so well that they use it to, fit whatever situation they want it to fit. I mean, they use it to their advantage. So, for instance, there are cases that you would think would be black and white, but because they know the loopholes and which way to go with that law, they know how to interpret it in such a way that they get the judgment they want to get.
Keyword should be, but they know the loophole.
Yes,
that means it is not certain.
No, the majority of people know the law.
So don't blame them when they explore that loophole.
You can't. I mean, if the loophole is there, the loophole is there, and I will never blame anyone for exploiting a loophole.
But, it's interesting hearing the discussions, but I think in terms of every interpretation, legal statutes, and what lawyers do is set within a context. And you were right. 1 + 1 will not be
4,
may not
5,
be
60.
Yeah, it could change depending on the country, and I think that's the most important thing is the context under which laws are applied. Because as someone said, the concept of slavery at some point was legal.
Yes, exactly.
I agree with you, but my point here is basically what I'm saying. We can coexist happily without necessarily being at each other's throats. But when you hear some people discuss and then you now say, okay, no, let me contribute mine. You say, no, you are wrong. You are very wrong. I didn't think you'd be this narrow, you'd be this shallow. And what kind of useless and shallow reasoning? It's my reasoning. Allow me to be shallow. And so that's what I'm saying. Law, it's not like mathematics. And so in interpreting, statutes, allow everybody to interpret it the way they see it. Until the court says, oh, from now on, this is the way it should be. Yes. And then we can say,
and then, of course, there are many courts. So when you don't like the High Court, you move to... And I always say that that's Supreme Court idea. I just don't like it at all. How can you end the thing like...
So you want it to go on forever.
Like we say, there must be an end to it.
No, it has to be an end.
But going back to what was Emeka, you mentioned something about fairness and the law. I mean, one thing that I've always known about the law is that the law deals with evidence, not with truth. Right?
Yes. Yeah. So, and that's why the law is different from justice.
Justice, exactly. Okay. Because justice isn't always fair.
And then justice also... Justice to you
should be fair. Justice should be fair.
I don't think, remember, we have seen so many miscarriages of justice, and we've seen so many cases where we think, everybody, the public opinion is like on this side, and then the judge
There's nothing like absolute justice.
Yes, that's right.
And so, what justice to you might not be justice to me.
Yes.
And so that's why some people will say, well, I know the court of law, not the court of justice. You can tell me of the court of law and not the court of justice because I might get there and not get justice. And I agree with you that...
But, Liboris, what fueled this? Because, I mean, it seems like you and your fellow lawyers... Because this discussion really... I don't feel like it really brings us in. So there must have been something going on.
That's why I took it to the street. What fueled this is, this, like I said earlier on, everybody's a lawyer now. Once the news broke, all kinds of interpretation. And then the one that annoys me the most is the insult. Like you were talking last week, you talked about social media etiquette. So it is part of that's your social media etiquette. I say, look, let's agree to disagree. So we can disagree. And we can agree to agree and agree to disagree. That way we can coexist peacefully without having...
but is your message still to lawyers?
Not just lawyers. I'm talking about that. She asked me where fair is. Well, like I said, sometimes it's okay to agree to disagree. Emeka makes the case for weed after the break.
You are watching The Advocate on Plus TV Africa. It may be time the law caught up with reality. And the reality is happening right before our eyes. Just 2 days ago, the governor of Ondo State, Mr. Rotimi Akeredolu, tweeted, and I quote, "We all know that Ondo State is a hotbed of cannabis cultivation in Nigeria. We know how to grow it, and it thrives well in the Sunshine State. With an estimated value of $145 billion in 2025, we will be shortchanging ourselves if we fail to tap into the legal marijuana market." According to him, his focus is on the medical marijuana cultivation in controlled plantations under the full supervision of the NDLEA. It is important to note that he made this statement whilst on a visit to Thailand with the head of the NDLEA to ostensibly, according to him, study how cannabis can be of more advantage to the state and Nigeria at large, just the way the Thai government has done. So here we are in 2019, and it seems the tide for the continuing prohibition of marijuana is ebbing. More and more countries are taking steps to abolish the criminalization of marijuana completely, or at least allow the use of marijuana for medical purposes, which appears to be the focus of the governor, Akeredolu. There is a growing support in many countries for marijuana law reform. In the United States, for instance, many states have allowed recreational and medical use of the drug, with public opinion polls showing more than half of the US population are in favor of legalizing marijuana. The Drug Policy Alliance believes marijuana should be removed from the criminal justice system and regulated like alcohol and tobacco. And indeed, countries like the Netherlands and Uruguay and recently Canada have recently decriminalized marijuana. And we are yet to see any rise in criminal tendencies, which is often the excuse that a lot of people say that marijuana breeds criminal tendencies in those countries. So in Nigeria, whilst marijuana remains prohibited and even demonized, if we're true to ourselves, we see it every day, we see it on the streets, we will note many more people, especially young people, are using the drug. The late Afrobeat legend, Fela, may have made marijuana popular, according to some, but there's no doubt that before Fela, people used it, and people continue to do so. So legalizing and regulating marijuana as a cash crop may, according to some people, some experts, create more jobs and create economic opportunities in the formal economy instead of the illicit market where it now resides. So my question today is, should marijuana be legalized in Nigeria? And what are your thoughts?
Legalize it.
Yeah. I say straightforward yes. I think it's way overdue.
And you know, I love that
It's
song.
way
Touch. You know? But the thing is that I think because there are two predominant types, I think, of cannabis. One is marijuana, the other is hemp. Is that a simple way to break it down?
So you have a crop,
yes.
Yeah? Yes. And so out of that crop, the marijuana is often what people smoke.
Yes,
the hemp, it's actually the part of the plant which is used for other purposes.
Medicinal purposes.
No, but it's cannabis. It's a byproduct of it, which is CBD.
Okay.
But it's less, how do you call it? It won't give you
No, I don't want to sound like an expert.
There's a THC,
that's right.
which is the one that gives you the high.
And it's in cannabis.
Okay, you're talking
not in, but very little in liberals. Are you breaking it down for the man on the street?
Yes, I'm breaking it down for the man on the street.
So that we don't give it science.
You know, but really the problem. I like Akeredolu's
yes, when he sends that twist,
point of view, and then the way he wants to go about it. You know, grown under the direct supervision of NDLEA.
Yeah.
You know, because here, legalizing is one thing, control is another thing.
Exactly.
You know, we like I did say before the program. You hear jokingly people say, in the UK, under the law, everything is prohibited except those that are permitted. In Nigeria, in America, under the law, everything is permitted except those that are prohibited. But in Nigeria, everything is permitted, including those that are prohibited. So if you now permit the use, my brother, you will. So
many things will happen.
Many things will happen.
No, but what are the hang on. Before you move on, what are the many things that will happen exactly? Well, let us finish, and then you list the many things that will happen.
The one for the high
and so quickly, there's need for us, even if you're legalizing, it should be under the strict, control of the farmers that are growing. I know in Abi, in Delta State, they grow it like flowers, but because of the monetary value NDLA should be able to supervise some of these farms, even during harvest, and then straight to factories or where they are processing them, and not to allow it just go into the
I think
streets
that's
like that.
that's really what Governor Akeredolu was pointing to, because in Thailand where he went to, I mean, this is exactly how, I mean, the Thais are very strict about drugs. I mean, they will literally imprison you or kill you.
They'll kill you.
But they've set up this mechanism where the cultivation and the use of the drug is under strict supervision of the drug interdiction agency. So I think that's
Yeah, that's why I like.
I kind of like it. I think it's overdue.
But this huge fear mongering about, once they legalize it. Let's even talk about if you legalize recreational marijuana. I'm not that sure that you're laughing, but I'm not that sure that there are going to be many more people on the streets, I don't believe that. In Amsterdam, it's been legalized for a long time.
Yes,
and
coffee shops are everywhere.
none of that is going on. I don't think you're going to suddenly have this new... People who are going to smoke it are already smoking it.
See,
I agree.
If you've ever been to Abi in Delta State, it's close to Abraka, between Abraka and
that's where the best one grows.
Exactly. And even Obiaruku, even in the hotels, you see them boldly written, no hard drugs, please, no hard drugs, please. Because these places, without your knowledge, without you knowing, somebody serves you food with, hemp, with the leaves. And so, that's why, even in Thailand, where it is legalized, I'm talking about in which country?
Amsterdam.
It is heavily regulated. Not just walk into a coffee shop and everybody buys, or you just go into a club and everybody is smoking Igbo. The way we tend to do things here.
But it's happening here right now.
Yeah.
And you were saying, even in Abraka, in those places,
yes.
If you're not careful, you might find it in your food. So it's already happening.
Yeah,
but it's happening.
Now it is restricted.
But can we take it away from Abraka and put it?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Now it is restricted. It is happening that way. When it is not restricted,
What will happen? They will just pour it inside your soup.
It will not. I mean, look.
I don't think it will.
I don't believe
there will be some change.
A governor that's progressive.
Massively.
First and
There'll be a
foremost, that's the one
massive
thing I
change.
now
like.
you're trying to curb drugs usage amongst the youth. Sorry.
Yeah. When Rotimi said this, and it's clear that Mr. Governor Akeredolu, rather, to be polite, it's clear that he had put a lot of thought into it. Number one. Number two, he's not the only one that's actually been advocating for this for a long time. But if we take it on a broader level, look, we constantly go on in Nigeria about how states should generate their own revenue, right? We constantly go in about how we should use our big farmland and cash crops and whatever. Incidentally, actually, marijuana is a cash crop.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Most people tend to just think of it as a drug. It's a cash crop. So if Governor Akeredolu and the NDLEA are able to make it happen, he's talked about the millions that is going to come in for his state, number one. Number two is many more states can actually learn from how it's been done. So let's use on those states as the pilot. And then less dependency on federal. Isn't that what we've all been saying?
It is.
Yes.
It is.
Let's hand out.
Yes.
Completely, I agree. That's why I said I love Governor Akeredolu's idea of the regulation. And so, what I am simply saying is that freedom, absolute, there's nowhere you have absolute freedom in the world.
Agreed.
Freedom are curtailed to some extent. And so that's why he is mooting the idea in collaboration with NDLEA. These are people who regulate
But there will still be illegal users. So look at what's happening in the UK.
So for that, you should also try to ensure that, you take accurate preventive measure. So if there are going to be illegal usage, then it is not something that it's as of rights.
Yeah.
You know that, look, steps would have probably been taken, and like we say, you had you've gone extra mile to be preventive. But this one just had to happen. But unlike when here now, sorry, quickly, Emeka, we're trying here to control the drug usage, by young ones. And so, that's a big task that we've not been able to control.
Can I say something, though? And this is research all over the world, in all the countries, when I was preparing, that alcohol usage is actually more dangerous
Absolutely.
than marijuana. And it's a fact. So, and the other thing is that when you look at it, young people who want to smoke have access in this Lagos.
Already have access,
will
yeah.
have access to it, and you're beginning to see all kinds of people because it's illicit, it's under the table, have all kinds of different strains. Some of it are very dangerous, some of it are not good, and people are having drug overdose, and people are dying. From this.
But just to extend that youth thing, you said, and I think that's also perhaps what Liberos was worried about. But if you look at it, there's different types of. Every time somebody sees someone smoking marijuana, they just think it's straightforward. They go, no. The majority of the ones that turn them crazy are laced with something else.
Yes.
So you have the ones that are laced with rat poison. You have the ones that are called. You have the one that's laced with cocaine and all of that stuff.
Yes.
So and those are the ones that are actually
control those ones.
Yeah, but
that's what legalizing does. Legalizing
it
allows you to then
increase this.
Something will go wrong at first, I think.
You know,
always happens.
Always. Then the curve comes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like alcohol consumption, the prohibition era in the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, that created more crime.
Yeah.
When it became legalized and controlled, it came down.
Yes.
So I think, the lessons, and we've seen the drug policy in America has failed woefully.
Absolutely.
It's failed. So
because America is not it's a country of control like you have in where's this country that Credo just visited? Thailand is more regulated, but they farm it, they grow it, they make money from it, and that's why I'm saying learn it properly from Thailand, not the American learning.
Well, I think that we'll probably just look forward to seeing what Governor Credo can do.
We see success.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what? Somehow I expected that this idea we met with a lot more opposition, or at least a mixed reaction. But Uche tells us why she's not so down with jungle justice after this short break.
You're watching The Advocate on Plus TV Africa. Enough is surely enough. Several years ago, on my way to work, my attention was drawn to a crowd gathering across the road from me. My driver slowed down and I noticed a young boy on the pavement tied like you would a goat you had just purchased, shaking uncontrollably and pleading. It dawned on me that he was about to meet his end. What I was witnessing at that moment was jungle justice. I was saddened and felt totally helpless because I knew there was nothing I could do as I saw the familiar sight of tires being thrown on him. I had to look away. So why are Nigerians resorting to jungle justice in the face of the existence of institutions for restitution? I believe it's because the police and courts have failed Nigerians in dealing with not just criminal cases, but other cases they are constitutionally vested to deal with. The police have been accused of compromising justice and have done a terrible job of investigating and prosecuting criminal cases, and these in turn have resulted in criminals feeling more emboldened. The courts have often been lethargic in adjudicating in cases, allowing them to linger forever. Often, when finally the cases are settled, they end up favoring the criminals who heavily invest in the time-wasting delays of the courts to escape justice. Often, all they get is a slap on the wrist, leaving their victims completely let down and frustrated. Something must be done, as innocent people are being killed nearly every day as a result, as we saw with the Alu 4. So here's what I propose. The police and the courts must take responsibility and do something urgently to not only put away criminals speedily, but reassure the people that criminals apprehended will be dealt with in a manner that deters them from continuing in crime. The fact is that the people have lost total confidence in the police and the courts to deal with criminals, hence the resorting to self-help becoming very attractive. They must work very hard to regain the confidence of the people in dealing with criminal issues. That way, they save not only those who are wrong targets of mob action, but also ensure that justice is carried out the right way. The country's criminal justice system needs quick and urgent action to arrest the rising cases of jungle justice all over the country.
Yeah, like I said, Uche, you failed that boy. You needed to have just been that one lone voice. And you probably joked one or two persons back to their reasoning, and they would have.
Okay.
Well,
the thing is, I just think that there might be a disjunct between the people who are acting like animals and the failure of the justice system. I'm not sure. I think there's something else that's causing this behavior, this animalistic behavior, and it's not just the failure of. I don't think it's so intellectually obvious that that's where it's coming from.
No, do you mind if I just come in quickly?
Before you come in quickly, partly, I partly agree with her when she said failure of the justice system, the policing, because even people who committed these wrongs, nothing happens to them. Some of them, before you know it, they all find their way back into the streets. And so we have a way of resorting to self-help. That's what we call self-help also. And so if the law or the criminal justice system is immediately, the instrumentality of it is immediately activated to deal with, cases, matters as they come, including those who resort to self-help, you won't have, you deter a lot of people from it.
If you go back in time, this thing was very popular long before now, 30, 40 years ago. And I wouldn't say that the country was as messed up as it is today, even if it was in reality. We're far less people anyway. We're not 200 million, so we thought a bit differently. So that's why I say I think that there's something wrong. And I think it's cultural.
Okay,
it's not that our culture as Africans is animalistic, but we have. Let's face it. There's a disjunct from moving from our culture
let me
westernized
just
culture.
Jungle justice is our culture.
Yes.
It's our culture. We call it
I don't know about
No, I won't call it jungle justice.
Sorry, please. Let me make this the reason why.
Trial by ordeal.
But it was
okay. Let the advocate.
Sorry, let me just because Chuka seems to not see the connection, and for me it's very clear. For instance, I read about there was this community where there were these boys who were terrorizing people on a daily basis. They would report it to the police won't do anything. Even if the boys go into the police cell or whatever, they'll be out and they'll be back to doing exactly what they were doing. So finally, the community were able to round up these boys. And at that point in time, they were not going to go back to the police who had been letting them down. Yeah. So what did they do? They burnt the boys. Yes. Okay, let's look at another during the elections. The police were right there when people were snatching ballot boxes and what have you. They weren't doing anything. What do you expect these people to do? It's almost like you're encouraging them to do these things. They burnt another human or set him on fire. I think he later died, but I don't know. I can't really. He didn't die.
No, he
okay,
didn't, yes.
But at least they set him on fire because they were there watching this man snatch ballot boxes. The police were there just watching him, and their votes were being stolen and destroyed. There has to be a direct connection. If between, I don't know how you can say that there is.
No. I'm not saying that there was absolutely no case where I took my jungle justice because police did not act. But I'm saying that I believe that jungle justice, no, I know, but there's many, that the jungle justice is actually somehow as if it's inbred. And there are cases.
Let me justify that statement that you said is bizarre. Trial by ordeal. A woman's husband dies, and then you say she must have killed her.
Okay.
I'm telling you, you wash a dead body for somebody to drink, but then people will be there.
But can I say,
and not just that one. There's an accusation that somebody stole. You take the person to the shrine and say you must swear and you must die. And these are fallout. What we have today, this mob action are fallout of these practices.
Maybe we don't understand the Western system of law.
I think this is what.
That's sometimes why we're like that.
This is the point where, and it harkens back to what you just said. There seems to be a dysfunction, a breakdown of our current legal system, which is in most instances artificial. We borrowed it. So there's a disjunction from what is a traditional system, because, again, from what Liberos is saying, that it's part of our culture. Not necessarily, because if someone steals in the olden days in a village, what they would do is they will, and if you're a persistent thief, they will ask you to leave. Yeah. You leave the community. They will ostracize you, they won't kill you. Yeah. They will just ask you to leave.
They actually even hold court in the village.
And you have your say. And just I think it was after the genocide in Rwanda. If you remember, there were almost 1 million people killed. It was impossible to use the Western legal system to try the offenders. Yeah. So they had to use the Gacaca system, which was their own traditional system, which won't
anybody to trust.
Whilst we advocate in here, it's time to join your advocacy on our social media platforms. On our population time bomb, Sam Wankwa says, I'm totally with you on the subject matter. Human resource remains the greatest tool of development. On social media etiquette, Dan Akban Elias says, I'm struggling to accept numbers 1 don't. When somebody accepts my friend request, I do send a hi or hello sticker to acknowledge and open convo. Usually I get a response and an acknowledgement back. So if there's no exchange, how do we get to start a convo? Engage, or when is it the best way to meet on social media without private chats? I think this person just wants to enjoy himself on. Still on the matter, Bridget Miller Taylor says, treat a profile like the front veranda. Treat a post like a living room. An inbox is the kitchen. You know where you're welcome. You know where you've been invited. Nobody wants a stranger walking right off the street and into their bedroom. Thank you, Bridget. I totally agree with that. That would be presumptuous and rude. I fully agree with you. Again, on population time bomb, Lola OV, says, it's weaponized vanity, people hiding behind the cloak of religion and fertility to justify overcrowding and an already overwhelmed system. I often wonder what it would take to actually enforce a one-child policy, and I'm afraid I don't trust our government to get it right, and I don't trust that it would lead to a new kind of operation for the poor class. You can join the conversation by going to our Facebook page, Plus TV Africa, #TheAdvocateNG, or on Twitter and Instagram at Plus TV Africa, #TheAdvocateNG. Also, you can watch our previous broadcasts or view our scripts and profiles on www.plustvafrica.com/theadvocate. Time to go on a brief break. When we return, Chuka tries to make sense of the dilemma of mothers and rapists after the break.
You're watching The Advocate on Plus TV Africa. Sometimes the solution to a dilemma is really a no-brainer. So another one of Mother's Day has come and gone, the American brand, that is. But what message has sunk in? Because it's high time things changed. I do not know about the oft-peddled feminism with its varied interpretation and rejection in many parts of the world, Africa inclusive. What bothers me more is respect for the woman. Are we to pretend that we do not know that the favorite pastime of our politicians and businessmen especially are girls, 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 loads of them girls, and it shows no sign of abating? Are we to turn a blind eye to the increasing pressure on women to succumb to sex for job elevation? Even women are turning a blind eye here, yes. And rape, when will this most evil and animalistic of crimes against women abate? Why do we appear powerless? Why do we allow the victims feel shame for having done nothing? The perpetrators, men, are born of women. They have lived with their mothers, worshipped them, loved them, fought for them, or their sisters even. Rape is without doubt sometimes a mentally deficient act of a clinically deranged person. The evil mind is close to this definition. So why is castration not an option as part of the overall punishment? I do not see anything so fitting as castration. Then hospital, jail, or whatever else. We either respect and care for women or we suffer the consequences.
I've got a question for you.
Okay.
I really don't understand.
Okay.
The often peddled feminist, but you're on the side of feminism, but you're on the side of women. But sorry, I just need to understand.
Yes, in other
part of
words, there are many parts of feminism that I don't agree
Mention
with.
one.
But no, I don't need to, because we'll go into.
We won't. I just want to mention one.
No, we'll be sidetracked.
We won't.
There are many things. It may not even be absolute things like, oh, somebody said this and I don't agree. There are many things about feminism. It's a movement that's trying to build. And so there will be things thrown at us.
That's what you don't like about it.
And so there are things we will disagree with, and it might be terrible on us from the people pushing it. It will take us, many more years before we get to a point where we get to a point where it's okay. So what I'm saying is, there are many things about feminism. It's just like there are many things about the gay movement that, obviously, if you put it down on my table now, I will reject many.
There's nothing obvious about
you know?
it. You just would reject it because you're
You see, this is the problem I have. I wish you had not brought feminism into your...
Because I don't know
so that we can deal with
the reason I put the feminism there is that I don't want it to form any part of what I'm discussing on this matter.
I understand
why. So I dismissed it very early.
I understand Chuka's,
I'm not here as a feminist. I'm here for people committing animalistic crime against women, mostly
really
women.
agree with you on the crime against women and why I think it shouldn't be a women affairs alone. We all should stand up for it.
Absolutely.
And then this idea of police officers raping.
I know.
Women.
The fact that they did, not even an idea, it was they did.
With
pure water bags,
bags as condoms, and and then we just gloss over it as if it has happened. Oh, okay, the police authority will do.
No one has been not one person.
Amnesty International, just to interrupt, Amnesty International has said they are going to ensure. The police
that's what I'm saying. That's where the
but
problem.
what has your president done about it?
That's the problem.
It's not a presidential
You don't have to
thing,
wait.
really.
No, not that he would do anything as such, but
You don't have
he has
to
not
wait
even
for-
shown emotion about it.
You don't have to wait for Amnesty
As
International.
usual.
It beholds on all of us.
I think that's actually not a Buhari job. I don't know why.
No.
Sorry,
If something
guys.
like that happens in a country,
Guys.
if it happened in Germany that policemen raped women the way they did in Lagos, I mean in Abuja and all that, if it's Germany, I'm sure that Merkel will express her disgust. So Buhari here, it's not a personal attack on Buhari, it's an attack on Buhari as president, keeping absolutely quiet while that sort of thing
Where is
happens.
the Minister of Justice or law?
We will come down to that, but where is the president?
Because that's the person that actually needs to hold the press conference.
That's where I am saying.
Can we keep it about
Exactly.
His comment or his argument about what to do about this castration.
I think we should focus
For me, first and foremost,
I think it's time for
is the fact
castration,
that I really don't think we should all wait for government. When things like this happen, it shouldn't be one woman group, one women group there, or Amnesty International. It should be all of us. This is inhuman. All of us collectively as a people should do something about it, and we should ask that justice be done.
I think
Not just castrated.
I think in terms
They
of
both sign on there. I mean, rapists.
I think
Written, boldly written,
education
everywhere you go
is very important. Within not just the family setting, but also in formal education, formal schools from primary, secondary, especially secondary school. I've got 2 kids and a daughter in secondary school, in mixed school. I worry every day. I dread to get a phone call to say this happened. Because I can't tell you what I would do. I don't know what I would do. Castration may be the least of what I could do.
Yeah.
So I think we need to. That's part of it. More advocacy, yes. More advocacy needs to be done by not just women, but everyone. It needs to be done. And I think also going to what you're saying about insisting that repeat offenders.
Wear a
if he survives the first, but offenders should be, like you have in other countries where you have people designated as sex crime offenders.
Right, they should be registered.
And they should be registered.
Not just registered with a bold sign on his
and
chest.
saying that they
everywhere he goes to.
even on his driver's license, it's put there.
It's put
And even when you're going to take a job or you're going to look for accommodation, if you've been, convicted of rape or it should be on the form so that people will know whether to give you.
Yeah, that's true.
So we should extend the consequences. And I think that's the thing, because it seems to be limited to only the persons who have committed this crime.
Right.
And so they can walk away, no one else knowing that they've committed this crime. But when it becomes, when it becomes known that this person has committed this crime, and every other person within the community knows that, and I think that way, a lot more people will be worried or scared of even participating, because you hear all these things that happen in universities.
Yes.
It's scary.
Yes.
You hear the things that happen in when there's recruitment, especially in federal government agencies. I mean, it's scary. Yeah. And it's
Let's bring this back
Yeah.
to you made the connection between Mother's Day and rapists and all that, and I really don't know why you made that connection.
Yeah, because the first woman you tend to first
and
mature
eulogize
woman,
is your mother.
mature because your
Yeah.
sisters
Sure.
are there, but they're small girls like you're a small boy, so it's your mother. Now, how would you get from a point of knowing your mother to a point where you can rape somebody else's daughter?
Okay.
Well, it's the same.
Or a
What
mother
you're
already,
saying
even
to
at that
me
point.
just doesn't, because men were raised by women, but many of them are still horrible to their wives. They're still beating their wife. No, I'm just trying to,
That's what you guys saying. That if you adore your mother, you're celebrating Mother's Day. And so see that as a point of reflection.
Yeah.
That look, if somebody does this to my mother,
or had done it before.
Yeah, but what I'm saying
what
is
will I
that
do?
even decent men like you and Chuka, when you will react differently. Like when you're busy chasing somebody else's sister, you're not thinking, oh, if that were my daughter.
That's
I will-"
chasing. It's
No,
different
but it's the
from-
same.
I know where
It's
Usa
a
is going.
different-
Don't
Do you know
mind
where
the
I'm
chick.
going, right?
I'm a decent man. That's that.
Even decent
and I
men.
will not,
All
I will
I'm
not
saying
forget
is
where I'm
that,
coming from.
Yeah, right.
No, I won't. No, I won't. It's not you alone. Yeah, I was just going.
You know what? There's a protest going on, anti-rape protest going on. I'm going to go and join them. The good thing about what we saw in Abuja was it was both male and female.
Yeah.
Which brings me on to the positive. The positive thing is that we are winning the war. Albeit slowly, we still have a very, very, very ugly percentage that we need to, like you said, we need to
work on.
break, work on.
Yeah.
But we are winning the war, and we're winning the war by the fact that more and more men, even on social media, you hear men who are condemning it, but there's still a majority who do not.
It takes things further.
Exactly.
No, really disastrous for a president
To even say
be
he's unaware.
unaware of the chief
It's
justice.
a ploy. It could be a strategy.
That strategy was
Backfire.
very terrible strategy. Because the buck stops at your table.
Whether it's that we don't look after our cities, and quite frankly, Nigeria is becoming a very ugly place.
When you are the only one feeding the people with this news and there is nobody countering them, it becomes, the news.
You're watching The Advocate on Plus TV Africa. Time to go beyond borders. Last Sunday was yet another Mother's Day celebration, as you've just heard from Chuka. The third or second so far this year, I believe. But of course, many would argue that every day is Mother's Day. A post on Twitter triggered my debate this week. The post was by South African broadcaster, film producer, and former editor of Oprah's O magazine, Komotso Masunyane. Komotso wrote, "I have no regrets about never birthing children. Stop trying to convince the rest of us that we're all missing out. Not all of us should want to be mothers. Hashtag child-free, hashtag guilt-free, hashtag no regrets." Much as many women, including myself, applauded her for voicing the important yet contrarian thoughts, others, however, felt she should have waited till Monday to speak her mind. They just weren't here to read any post that dissented from their gendered narratives. Note, majority of these others were also mothers. Why is it so wrong for one woman to vocalize her thoughts, whilst also speaking for millions of women who object to society's packaging and dictatorship of their female wants and aspirations? It can't be denied that globally, the expectation and conclusion is that all women wish to give birth. Yet, some of the best mothers I know have never given birth, neither have they ever desired to do so. In Nigeria, to be boldly express such a wish to family or friends is to immediately be slapped with a barrage of responses. Why? What's wrong? How can you say that? Oh, and don't forget your mother's response once you tell her, oh, you better just cuckoo kill me now. Look, I'm as much a sucker for commercial celebrations as the next person. But seriously speaking, what contributions have the numerous annual commemorations of Mother's Days around the world made to the plight of women in this patriarchal universe? In fact, some would suggest that to give the day its full value, it should be used as an opportunity to invite the rhetorics from women whose candid volitions are muffled by the jingoist chants of us mothers. I believe messages like Komoto's are more important if we truly wish to actualize the genuine emancipation of all women. It's time the world got over herself and faced up to the fact that the possession of a womb is not eponymous with childbirth.
Well, for me, it's not. So it's very strange because sometimes when I see all this, like what you've just said, that Kigomotso, somebody.
Komoto.
Oh, okay, the K is silent.
It's not. It's a South African name.
No, I know. I don't. I'm not
leave
South African.
Komoto?
So whatever her name is, I think that she would have irritated me for the simple reason that I'm not part of what she's complaining about, and she assumes. But I would like to ask: is there statistics to show that there are much more people who think that because you have a womb, you must have a child? Has that not subsided with time? That right now we would think that it's not too bad now that you could I mean, my daughter could tell me, for instance, now that she doesn't want to have a child,
So,
and it won't mean anything to me.
Right.
I wouldn't even flinch if she says it. But I may be 1 in 1 million. Is there statistics to that?
Right,
because
so
I see it looks like things are better now. I don't know how much better.
Komoto sent out a tweet, right?
Okay.
She did a post, desire from her heart. That's what she felt like posting on Mother's Day, right? Whether people like it or not is their problem. What I found, and was the reason why a lot of people didn't like it, is like, oh, it's Mother's Day. Don't tell us that today. Come back tomorrow. Don't ruin our day, etc., etc. Now, you ask about statistics. I don't think there is one, at least not in Nigeria. No. But there is a trend. And it's a growing trend of women who are choosing not to have children, either through biological circumstances, either through the fact that they've inherited certain genes they don't want to pass on to children. It's like more women are choosing to remove their breasts. Okay, so either because they like being with their partner and they're not afraid. Yes, they do. The more women are taking,
they'll be flat.
They take their breast. More women are taking.
Okay, can I just come in here?
What's it called? The option. They can remove their breast because if they believe that they carry a BRCA gene, best to remove the breast.
No, of course now.
I just use this as an example. Yeah. So more and more women are beginning to actually take the choice that they don't want to have children. But what most society don't like is for them to say it and to be allowed to just, you know what, that's how you feel.
Yeah, okay. my point, what I'm not...
No, it is. I'm not saying it isn't, but because you still got attacked.
I've heard of couples who got married and said, look, we don't want children.
There are many like that.
My problem with this journalist, I don't even want to get into pronouncing the name.
Komoto.
Yes,
it's simple.
Is that there's obviously she's triggered by mothers, because I don't really see why she needed to even put out a tweet like that. It was almost like she just wanted to rain on Mother's Parade. I don't see any reason.
Do you not read the rest of it? She said, and there are lots of women say, and the minute you get married is even worse. When are you having children? Do you not think
that's not bad?
That's one of the things she says, like, don't make me feel guilty about not wanting to birth a child. It doesn't mean I'm not a mother.
Even if, like, for instance, if the same pressure is put on people to get married, same pressure is put on people to go to school. I just feel like we're too sensitive these days to everything.
That's why I was going.
It's getting out of hand. Let mothers be celebrated on Mother's Day. If you have a contrary opinion,
she didn't say mothers shouldn't, but she should be able. Why? What is so sacrosanct about the third Mother's Day? All of which are inconsequential.
Can I voice it 3 months later?
It is not mothers that are celebrating mothers.
are people celebrating?
I am
mothers?
celebrating my mother, and you say I'm making you feel
And she's
bad.
celebrating the fact that she doesn't wish to
what
be a
about
mother.
mothers? What about,
What's your
what about
problem with
people
that?
that
They
trigger?
believe she has a motive.
So this is me now trying to stay in the middle lane.
Come out of that lane.
So obviously, Komotso felt that the best time to say something about the problem or about this tendency
To
will
expect,
be,
yeah.
will be
When
on Mother's
it's
Day,
hot, yes.
because it will travel further,
Yeah.
and it will, to
Yeah,
use your word, is a
exactly.
trigger,
Yeah.
Yes. A trigger of a debate.
of a debate,
And an
I think so.
important debate.
So that's what she wanted to do. I sense that. I mean, she's media savvy.
Yes,
I mean, you can
clearly,
tell
yeah.
from her background that she understands
How these
how to
things
trigger,
work,
how to
yeah.
push. So she felt that this is the best time, and it's very calculated. You could see the
Very.
hashtags she put there. So it was deliberate. And so this conversation we're having
It is
now
because
is
she
as a
triggered
result
us.
of what she.
Well, that's what I wrote
Yeah,
in my script,
yeah.
Emeka. I said, if we are truly, why is it that people are afraid when we need to have a conversation? If we're truly
Why is it that
about
people are
emancipating
sensitive?
women,
No, but-
if we're truly about emancipating women, let's have the discussion, because there's nothing wrong with discussion.
In some cases, some people just say, we know that in Igbo tradition, as much as they love family, children, you have the highest number of reverend fathers who are celibate from this part of the country. And mothers, in some cases, let me finish,
Push them.
even encourage their children.
I think we should name this show "Let Me Finish."
Yeah, there's a lot of let me
encourage their
finish.
children.
And I'm going to say, honestly, we have viewers that watch this. Can, as many of you, send in messages if you've ever been asked, how many times you've been asked in your life if you're going to have children.
There are
Because
people that will be
you are
asked this
all
question.
seeming-
Also, there are people that
you are all
nobody will
seeming to
ask,
deny
nobody
that.
will bother.
Oh, I imagined we've rocked some boats on this edition. Personally, I'm glad I did. Time to bring things to a close. In the meantime, keep your comments coming in on our social media platforms. On Facebook, Plus TV Africa, #AdvocateNG, or on Twitter and Instagram, Plus TV Africa, #TheAdvocateNG. Let's keep advocating for a better society and for the emancipation of women.
Bye.
Oh dear.
Ciao.
Bye.
Welcome to The Advocate, a program that thrashes out all the topical issues of the day.
When you are in government, you don't see nothing wrong with whatever is happening. The moment
Self-interest.
you are out there, everything is wrong.
You can't even see
Yes.
many women now, and when they're there, they're not even really making a mark, and then they have an NYSC problem and this and that.
One of the reasons why we don't have more women in politics in Nigeria is for as long as political meetings continue to take place in the middle of the night.
Exactly.
No.
Really?
Disastrous for a president
To even say
be
he's unaware.
unaware of the chief
It's a
justice.
ploy. It could be a strategy.
That strategy was
It's a
very
Backfired.
terrible strategy, because the buck stops at your table.
Whether it's that we don't look after our cities, and quite frankly, Nigeria is becoming a very ugly place.
When you are the only one feeding the people with this news, and there is nobody countering them, it becomes, the news.
Hello, welcome to News on the Hour on Plus TV Africa. I'm David Alabi, and here are the stories making the headlines. Now we begin with security matters in Nigeria, as former President Olusegun Obasanjo has lamented the deadly activities of Boko Haram and herdsmen in the country. And according to him, the challenges have grown beyond what Nigeria alone can tackle, following the group's collaboration with the Islamic State West African Province fighters, ISWAP. He added that it is no longer an issue of the lack of education and employment for youth in the country, which it was when it began. Rather, it is now West African Fulanization, African Islamization, and global organized crimes of human trafficking, money laundering, drug trafficking, as well as gun trafficking, and illegal mining, as well as also regime change. The ex-head of state stressed that the security issue has gone beyond the wit and capacity of the Nigerian government or even West African governments. Earlier in our Lagos studio, we were joined by Ugochukwu Ikeako, a political affairs analyst, who shed more light on this matter. Here's his opinion.
ex-president Obasanjo was a former president of this country for 2 terms as civilian president and when he was as military president in the past. So his opinions are valid, all right? And what he's saying is the truth. Already, the fighters, or the terrorists themselves, especially the Boko Haram, they've grown. They're not what they used to be in the few years back when they were just a local group, a separate group in Borno, and doing what they were doing in the past. Now they've grown, all right? They've pledged their allegiance further to some of these international terror groups. Also, he made a right call by saying the West African government. A few years back, we had what they call the Joint Task Force, all right? That was under the Goodluck administration with the Niger and the rest of them. Because the truth is this, the West African border is kind of intertwined together. Our destinies, are tied together. And so there's no way you can solve the issue of insecurity without talking about, okay, how do we work with our neighboring countries? How do we work with each other to figure this thing out already? Nigeria as a country, we have a border issue, we have a border problem. We have close to 1,000 plus entering points in this country that are illegal. So already these are avenues where some of these guys can come in and wreak havoc on us as a country. So the question is this, for me, we shouldn't beat up the messenger, all right? Can we just forget, we should learn as a country to forget, let's forget about the messenger, his past, whether he has an idea, he has something to say. Is the message valid? For me, I think the message is valid. What he's saying is important, is central. It's for the security agencies, the people within the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the Army, the SSS. What are they doing? So what are they doing at this point to checkmate some of these issues?
What's your message to Mr. President now in terms of security?
I think for me, Mr. President should sit up. Right? If we're not, it will not be good for us as a country, as a people, to witness the level of high insecurity that we've seen over the last few years in his second term. At this point, we should be marshalling out plans. What are we going to do? How do we stop this thing from Zamfara down to Benue? Because this is what Nigerians want to hear. Nigerians want to feel safe and secure within this space so they can conduct their business and travel without fear. And look at Kaduna, same thing. Tourists should come in, stay in our space, bring in money for us to use and do other good things. And that is only what can make progress. Because as it is now, Mr. President just has to sit up with his guys.
And away from that conversation with Ugochukwu Keyako, now the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, has asked Loretta Onoche, an aide of President Muhammadu Buhari, to tender an apology and pay him 500 million naira for linking him to terrorists. This was contained in a letter by Mike Ozekome, SA and a lawyer to the presidential candidate. On the 7th of this month, Onoche had tweeted that the former vice president was on a United Arab Emirates watch list, and in the letter, Ozekame said, and I quote, "Your odious publication is clearly also aimed at rubbishing our client's image and reputation. It has caused him national and international backlash and embarrassment and done incalculable damage to him," the letter read. It's still talking security-related matters now. The federal government of Nigeria says that it has credible evidence to back up its outcry that the opposition is planning to sabotage President Muhammadu Buhari's administration, generally overheat the polity, and also make the country ungovernable. The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, said this on Saturday at the 2019 edition of his annual Ramadan lecture held at his hometown in Kwara State. Now, the minister also added that similar concerns had been raised by the police, the military, as well as the DSS. He called on Nigerians to use the occasion of the Ramadan to also pray for the peace, unity and stability of the country. The minister thanked all Nigerians for their support and prayers for the administration and also urged them not to relent, especially in the run-up to the May 2019 inauguration of the president. Joining us now in our Lagos studio to shed more light on this matter, as well as Tammy Kalio, a political affairs analyst. Good to have you join us, Tammy. Now, you heard that report now. The government of the day says it has credible evidence to back up its outcry that the opposition is planning to sabotage President Muhammadu Buhari's administration, overheat the polity and make the country ungovernable. But one of the biggest questions we've had so far from different interactions is the fact that if the government of the day say they have this evidence, why are we not having investigation publicized? Why aren't we having arrest? Why haven't we had any prosecution? And yet they say they have all of the evidences. But let me share with you now this quote. Now, our interventions are based on credible evidence and no government with this kind of evidence we have of plans to subvert the power of the state, attack the nation's economic live wire, and generally unleash mayhem on the polity, we'll keep quiet. And in not keeping quiet, we should see the evidences, don't you think?
I do think so. But then again, let's not forget that this is the Minister of Information, right? So as Minister of Information, he's privy to a lot of information that we regular people are not.
We understand confidential, but if they have all of these evidences, at least we should have some convincing information beyond all this talk.
All right, so actually we just finished very, very rough elections that involved two major parties. There's been a lot of backlash going at each other's throats. So I feel that there's a possibility that the reason the government may not be going forward with this investigations and to reveal evidence is because they're trying to ensure that we heal as a nation. Usually after elections, you have countries coming together. The winning party comes together to try to heal the nation so that they forget all of the scars that were opened up during the election process. But notwithstanding, I feel that we should not totally disregard this information. While he's not moving forward with it, I have no idea why he's doing that. But I feel that he's Minister of Information and he's privy to a lot of information that we are not. He receives security briefings and all these different things that come to him all of the time. So usually where there's smoke, there's fire.
All of these reports that we've had from the DSS, the Army, the police, they are not necessarily new to us.
Yes.
And these same allegations of colluding and coming together to sabotage the efforts of the government of the day, looking at even Goodluck Jonathan's time, his administration, these same allegations were made. So is this what always happens when we have the opposition and then the government of the day always pointing this blaming finger, really?
Yes, usually for political battles like this, you always have back and forth movements between political parties. We haven't, like we've begun to experience this more often because now we have...
So there's just a trend?
It's more like a trend. But I'm saying that we should not outrightly disregard it because it's the Minister of Information talking.
You talk
and these
about
are strong allegations here. So
you talk about not disregarding this message now, but we've not necessarily had any response from the PDP as well. That's the main opposition that the government of today is pointing out.
Exactly.
So do you think we would have any soon?
Well, the PDP has said, the PDP has responded in some articles that I read from Vanguard. They
but not necessarily clearly to all of these
allegations. They only said that the APC government should go ahead and publish the evidence if they have any. So regardless of the whole thing, I feel that they're going to publish evidence if they have enough. I feel that this is my suggestion, right? So if the Minister of Information of a country has said that this is like there's the political party and the presidential candidate is trying to cause political mayhem and usurp the government and all of that, I feel that the job of the media and the press is to do more investigative analysis, more investigative journalism, to try to get into this evidence that he talks about. Right?
Okay, for the lack of time now, it's 10 days to go. Today's the 19th, and we just have 10 days to go to the inauguration of Mr. President for his next term of 4 years. But to what extent now do you expect the government to ensure that we have a smooth transition, not necessarily a transition, but it's smooth inauguration in terms of security, and we don't have any meltdown? We can't be taken by any surprises if we have all of these flags being raised now.
Exactly. So all of these claims, I feel that the government should just ensure that the security agencies are always at their top game. They are alert and they are everywhere they're supposed to be to ensure that there's no violence, threats or anything around the corner. They also supposed to make sure that we heal. They're supposed to bring out messages of peace and not point fingers at one another. Right?
Okay.
So
thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, moving on, we focus on highlights from Leah Sharibu's 16th birthday, which occurred last week, and there have been several calls from different quarters on the government of the day to do the needful in securing Leah's release and others still in Boko Haram captivity. The Lagos branch of the Bring Back Our Girls group on Saturday honored her as they gathered for a brief session. It is exactly 452 days of captivity. And Plus TV Africa captured this moment in Lagos as our correspondent, Amaka Okoye, 1,000 details in this report.
This gathering of the Bring Back Our Girls group happens weekly on Saturdays, but today's is special as it is in honor of Leah Sharibu, the only schoolgirl remaining in Boko Haram captivity after the Dapchi kidnappings. The group also called on the government to intensify their efforts to bring them back, as well as a reminder to Nigerians that some of the girls are still in captivity, lest we forget.
The federal government will have to intensify efforts to free Leah Sharibu, and the remaining 112 Chibok girls that are still in captivity, in the illegal captivity of the terrorists. That's our demand.
Leah was held back for refusing to convert to Islam after the Nigerian government negotiated and paid ransom for the release of the other schoolgirls. Her whereabouts remain unknown despite promises by the federal government to get her released.
Every child who is missing is owed a duty by the government of Nigeria, and that's what we're asking it to live up to. Normally we can be 3 here. There are times when we've been 3. There are times when we've been as few as 5. On the days when we have elections, we still try to occupy this space. Those of us who can walk here, we try to occupy the space so that people understand that somebody is standing in the gap for the missing children of Nigeria.
We're in it for the long haul. It was a commitment we made, the first protest we had in Abuja when the girls were missing. Now, true, nobody thought it would last this long, but we did make a commitment at that time that we will not stop, which is one of our chants. When we will stop, not without our daughters, not until our girls are back now and alive. So it's a commitment that we've made, and we've decided to stick through it.
Whereas there are concerns about her safety, human rights lawyer Femi Falana, present at the event, believes she is still alive.
Well, from reports so far, I think it's clear that she's being held hostage by the terrorists to keep the society divided. It's a point the terrorists are trying to make, so that Christians who feel that the government is not doing enough to free the only Christian, the only person who insisted on Christianity among the Dapchi girls. So to that extent, I believe she's still very much alive. But the duty of the government is to do everything possible to get that girl out of custody.
The big question, of course, remains, are they still alive? Will they be back? That's the hope that everyone holds, that someday these girls kidnapped from both Chibok and Dapchi will make their way back home safe and to their family and loved ones. For Plus TV Africa, Amaka Okoye.
Now, talking health-related matters, depression is a common illness worldwide with more than 300 million people affected, and it is one of the leading causes of suicide. Close to 800,000 people commit suicide every single year, which is one person every 40 seconds. According to the Federal Ministry of Health, 30% of Nigerians suffer from mental illness, and with a population of about 200 million people. Chika Nwewu brings us this report, and she says their Anti-Suicide and Depression Squad, in partnership with Yemi Adeyemi Foundation, held an event on Sunday to create awareness about mental health in the country.
Depression is a common illness worldwide, with more than 300 million people affected, and it is one of the leading causes of suicide. Close to 800,000 people commit suicide every year, which is one person every 40 seconds. According to the Federal Ministry of Health, 30% of Nigerians suffer from mental illness, and with a population of about 200 million.
I actually believe that statistics, because it was around that age that you're still going through trying to figure yourself out, and that's part of the mental distress, trying to figure out what you're good at, what your purpose in life is. It's around that age that we struggle with that. So I do believe that statistics, and of course suicide should be number 2. I think in the world as well, suicide is, because mental illness is actually more common than like cancer and heart disease and all these diseases that we speak about. Mental illness is more common than that. So I believe that's statistics.
And studies show that suicide is the second leading cause of death and is much more common between people of ages 13 and 29.
Anti-Suicide and Depression Squad, in partnership with Yemi Adeyemi Foundation, held an event on Sunday to create awareness about mental health in Nigeria.
I'm a very big person when it comes to mental health. I take it personal because I've gone through my own struggles with mental health as well. So when Dare came up to me and said, oh, I would like to do something like this, I was like, yeah, I'm totally game for it. And my foundation also helps in inspiring people, giving them the self-esteem they need, talking to them. We deal with a lot with girls who have gone through sexual molestation. So we work in that line, trying to get them back into their state of mind, because child molestation or rape has also been one of the reasons for people going into mental depression. So we try to talk to them and let them know that this isn't the end. It could be better. There's still very much more for you in life.
Studies show that suicide is the second leading cause of death and is more common between people of ages 13 and 29. For Plus TV Africa, Chika Winwu.
And now joining us in our Lagos studio is Darius Obele, Anti-Suicide and Depression Squad convener. Good to have you join us. Now, Darius, depression really still remains a grey area in Nigeria for people to really understand and comprehend, talk less of even addressing the situation. What exactly is depression? Some have said it's a silent killer, but others have also argued that every single person who is depressed usually gives the signs.
Yeah, that's true. Like every single person that is depressed gives the sign. Just most times we ignore it. We ignore them as well. Because, you know, depression has to do with you stopping or not wanting to do things you normally would do over a period of time. So statistics says after 2 weeks, if you notice someone stopping doing the normal activities they would do, then there's tendency that they are most likely depressed. Do you get what I'm saying? So if someone is usually posting on social media or doing certain things and then all of a sudden they just stop doing it, then they're going to be depressed. And you see signs when people just keep to themselves. They don't want to be out there. Do you understand what I'm saying?
But what about those who still wear a smile and you never can tell the emotions behind the mask they wear?
Yes, so that also happens as well. But then intimate friends, because, you know, there was a situation whereby one of my neighbors died. You know, they found him inside his house, like he just died there. Now, the situation was the fact that within 7 days, this guy usually would be doing something between 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. But for 2 weeks, someone noticed that he hasn't been doing this, and then they realized that he died in his house. Do you get what I'm saying? So someone noticed that. That was really sad. And so people putting on fake smiles, the only thing we can do is creating platforms that let people know that it's okay. Whenever you're ready, these platforms are available for you to reach out, and suicide is not the option. So that's the best thing you can do, because you can't force people to talk. Do you get? Everyone is faking, because normal response when you say, how are you doing is, I am fine. That's the normal response. But when you keep asking and you're consistent because you've perceived that this person is not okay, that person feels a sense of trust and wanting to open up to you.
And now we have reports that no less than 300 million people are affected by depression, which also leads to suicidal tendencies. And in Nigeria, just last year, we had alarming rates of suicide. The trend seems to still go high, although we've not necessarily had so much of publicized reports so far. But Chukwuemeka's report as well, the student from University of Nsukka, is still fresh in our minds as well. But really, though, how do we now deal with stemming this tide in Nigeria today?
Okay, so one important, or rather one serious issue right now with suicide and depression is stigmatization. People don't want to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about it. Everyone still believes it's a thing of the old, it's a rich man's disease, white man's disease, and things like that. And if you keep having that kind of mentality, it's going to affect us, because we need to make people feel like it's okay for them to come out, it's okay for them to cry out. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, because you have a society whereby they feel like men can't open up, men can't cry out, because the society is patriarchal, has made it seem like, you know, men are the ones that are supposed to be strong, and these guys can't come out. Some people even see them as weaklings. So if we can, you know, kill stigmatization, make it safe for people to be able to talk, because even at the event we had earlier hours of today, you know, we got celebrities to come out, share their experience about things they've dealt with, so that people can see that even the people they look up to are dealing with this thing, so that they make them feel safe. You know, there's something in mental health that has to do with vulnerability. Once I make you feel comfortable that you can be vulnerable around me, and then you feel that safe space to be able to talk to me, then you can be able to connect with me. You know, understand what I'm saying? So people need to be able to voice out and say how they feel, so that everyone can feel better, because it's all about opening up and being able to connect with people, knowing that someone cares is the most important.
Now, we are in the Mental Illness Awareness Week, and we know that we have individuals between the age of 13 and 29 most prone to all of these challenges and conditions that might lead to suicidal tendencies. But really, talking about social media pressures as well, because we live in this age where we are pretty much visual and we see other people's lives seemingly taking a good form, and some would just question, why am I this way? Why isn't things going right for me? And a whole lot more. What's your message as well in terms of our mental illness awareness week this time around to every single Nigerian?
Okay, so first of all, it's sad that the fact that a lot of people committed suicide on this week, it was like a sort of marking the anniversary, and then people were taking their lives just to make a point that it's the mental health awareness week. For people that have this issue, like I say, everyone should just understand that life is a process. Everyone's time is different, so don't compare yourself with Davido and all of these people. And I don't know, it's just sad for me that these people are not even talking about it for their fans out there, because it's all about competition. Like, okay, this person is posting on this social media, I have to post on this, and it's a fake life that people are living.
How do you think therapy, as well as your platform, to what extent do you think we would be able to see more successes in this area, counseling and therapy? Really?
Yeah, so therapy is very expensive. Many people cannot afford therapy. So what we do is we have private support group sessions for people, whereby you get once you sign up on our platform, like once you do a Google form, and you get a notification that will send you the address 48 hours before the event, but you will know the location area, so if it's real area, so that people can feel safe. And then we have the non-disclosure agreement, whereby you can see anything you want, and highly trained professionals that are helping us. And we also have the WhatsApp platform, where we educate people every single day about tips of self-help and get professionals to
What
talk
did you
to
call
them.
the platform again?
So it's a WhatsApp group, Assad's Forum. So if they check us on our social media handles at asads.ei on Instagram or asads_ei on Twitter. So send us a DM and then you'll be added to the WhatsApp platform. So we have Assads in Ghana, Ife, Abuja and Lagos on the platform, and then we're always teaching people, because the best thing we can do is just to spread the word. We don't have up to 100 professionals that can help people out, and we're 160 million.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Daria, and hopefully the message goes out to every single Nigerian who is either contemplating suicide or going through some depressive moment or the other, and hopefully the message really gets to all of us and we decide to cheer up. Life isn't so difficult, is it? Well, it's time to take a quick break now. When we come back after this, we'll bring you more reports from the rest of Africa. Glad to have you back, and if you're just joining us, you're watching news on the Hour and Plus TV Africa. Now, in updates from the rest of Africa, we have reports that protest against the continuity of Bouteflika-era officials in the state bureaucracy continue as thousands of Algerian students marched on Sunday in the capital, Algiers. More than 5,000 students gathered in front of the Central University in the Algerian capital. The rally later headed to the Central Post Office, Al Bereid Square. Despite Bouteflika's resignation, protesters have remained on the streets of Algiers to demand the departure of all Bouteflika-era officials, including interim President Abdelkader Ben Salah. The students' march in the capital coincided with the Algerian celebration of the day, which is marked on the 19th of May every year. The army is currently overseeing a 90-day transitional period and has promised to hold presidential elections on July 4. The news continues with other reports from the international front. On the foreign scene now, following last week's attacks on Saudi oil tankers and installations, a senior official said on Sunday that the kingdom will do its best to avoid war in the Middle East. However, Minister of State for Foreign Affairs Adel Al-Jubeir said that if the other party chooses war, then Saudi Arabia stands ready to respond with all strength and determination. Speaking at a news conference, Al-Jubeir also accused Iran of seeking to destabilize the region. Up next, we have business news updates. And talking business back home.
The message that I have for all of us is that you should think about the opportunity around.
Welcome to One on One. My name is Felicity Ezewike. Very glad you could join us. Today on One on One, we have Pastor Itua Ighodalo. He's an accountant, a thinker, a social reformer, and a writer. He obtained a BSc Combined Honours degree in Economics and Accounting in 1982 from the University of Hull, England. He qualified as a Chartered Accountant in July 1986 and attended a business management course at the Harvard Business School, Boston in 2011. He's a Fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria and a Fellow of the Chartered Institute of Taxation, Nigeria. He is a member of the Nigerian Institute of Management, a member of the American Society of Industrial Security, and a member of the American Institute of Management. Among other things, Pastor Ighodalo chairs and is on the board of several charitable organizations and NGOs, including the Courage Education Foundation, Heritage Homes, the Joseph Liberty Foundation, Food Bank Initiative, the Lydia Grace Foundation, and the Trinity Foundation. It is my pleasure to welcome you, sir, to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I basically had to cut that down to as brief as I can make it. How do you manage with so much responsibility? How do you juggle it and still stay sane?
Well, we take one thing at a time. We delegate a lot. Most of these things, somebody who is very passionate about them is in charge. So I give broad direction. Some of them I initiated, some of them I assumed, and some of them was trusted on me. But I work very well with different teams and make sure that things are working.
And they deliver to expectation, or you get some disappointment from time to time?
From time to time, some disappointments. Things don't quite go as you thought, as you expected. Some people need to be pushed a bit more. Some people need to be cautioned. Some people need to be driven. But that's all about management. Nothing is ever perfect, and everything is work in progress. So you keep making progress. But the most important is that everything is making progress and adding value and making some contributions.
Okay, you're a successful businessman aside from every other thing. And there is this speculation in Nigeria that for you to be successful in any business venture, you must cut corners at some point. Do you hold that view? And a follow-up question to that is, does the work you do that's not the pastoral work now in any way come in conflict with your faith sometimes?
Not at all. You don't need to cut corners to be successful. First of all, you need to define success. Success does not necessarily mean having lots of something, either money or whatever it is. Success probably means doing things properly, doing things right, adding value, and achieving results. Okay, so we've been able to run a decent business by doing things properly, doing our best to avoid unnecessary compromises that will conflict with our ethics and our morals. There might be a bit of pain sometimes in Nigeria because of the attitude of most people who even think that when you are trying to be proper, there's something fishy. Okay, so you need to pay some tax and you're ready to pay the tax. The taxman is now looking at you and saying, maybe you should pay more than whatever. So that's the psyche is like that. But you keep going. Sometimes your time is wasted because you say you're not going to do things improperly, but you must be prepared for those things. You must be mentally and physically and, of course, spiritually prepared for those things. And then you take one thing at a time.
You do a lot of charitable work. A lot of persons would say the Nigerian economy is not exactly friendly to a lot of businesses, not to talk of being philanthropic. So how do you stay afloat in the current economic realities in Nigeria?
Well, you just do your best, okay? You want to run a good business that turns in a different return and profit, pays for its staff, pays its liabilities, and gives the owners something for them to expand their coast and live a decent life. But there's always something extra. And, with money, it's a question of preferences, okay? So you have to be. So all God's money is for the benefit of his. So everything you give to God, it is just a way for God to redistribute to people that need. So what's the history of the tithe? Okay? The history of the tithe from a spiritual perspective is for you who have received from God to acknowledge God first as your source and to give part of that money to God. It's an acknowledgement that this came from God and I give to God, okay? And God said 10%, starting from the order of Melchizedek, that Abraham gave a tithe of all that he had gotten. What is the use of the tithe? The use of the tithe is to support people who focus their lives on spiritual things and spiritual infrastructure, okay? So the tithe was set aside for a group of people in Israel in those days called the Levites, a certain family who chose to concentrate their efforts to looking after the temple, to ministering in songs, to praying, to interceding, to carrying the ark of God, so that every other Jew, the remaining 11 tribes, could focus on agriculture, farming, fishing, cattle rearing, and war. Some people needed to continually talk to God and make sure that everybody else was all right. So they didn't have any means of livelihood, as it were. So God commanded that you pay a tithe to give to the priests and the Levites, so that they themselves could eat, could drink, could wear clothes, and could focus on the things of God. So that's basically where the tithe goes to. Tithe also goes without his problem being solved. Those who in his life, the man who was blind, Jesus gave him his sight. The man who had problems with his fingers, leprosy, Jesus healed him.
But that's in the Bible, basically. But in reality, in Nigeria, we know that there's a lot of people who are in, real abject poverty, and on a daily, you see churches coming up. Every corner, every place you look, there's churches coming up, and these people seem to be well taken care of.
First church in Acts chapter 2, chapter 3, the Bible says that everybody sold what they had and brought it to the apostles' feet, such that the apostles gave back to different people. And the end result was that there was none that had more than enough and none that lacked.
All right, we'll go on a very, very short break. We've been talking with Pastor Ighodalo. He's still with us. We'll just go on this very short break, and when we come back, the conversation continues. This is One on One.
You global star, you local rapper, you go down low. You swag, you go blow.
Yeah, making an Afrobeat.
You bring the heat, you boom. You the coolest kid in Africa. You shocky, you dab, you hustle. You the voice of the streets. You Afrobeat.
Good to know you're still with us. This is still One on One, and I still have with me Pastor Ighodalo. Thank you for staying with us, sir.
Thank you.
As a social
in darkness and ignorance. Okay, the Bible says the people that sat in darkness have seen a great light. The first thing that God did when he wanted to create something out of nothing was he says, let there be light. Let there be information. Let there be revelation. The difference between the first world and the third world is the level of knowledge and the exposure and the sophistication that each one has. So that's the first thing. So the first thing any serious government must do is to focus on informing and educating its people. The second thing is to have a clear vision of what the nation should be, what it should look like, in what direction it needs to go. Okay. The third is to have a very good use of the resource that has been benevolently deposited in a nation by the person or the being that made it possible. Okay. So what are we doing with all our resource? Okay. There's enough resource in Nigeria for every single Nigerian to have 3 meals a day without importing anything. Enough resource, enough land for agriculture, enough water for fish, enough animal husbandry or whatever for everybody in Nigeria to eat. You see, where you have been born is where your food is. So we don't need to import anything. Whatever we don't grow here, we don't eat it. Okay? There's enough resource for us to add value, to produce different kinds of things.
How can we do that? Because it seems that the people that are empowered to do most of these things are failing somewhat. So what would be your suggestion on how we can achieve some of these things?
All you need to add value to the things is technology, information. Okay, what turns crude oil into plastics and petrol is information. You have the crude oil. What do you do with it? Okay, how do you put a few barrels together, pass crude oil through those barrels, and change it into what it should be? It's information. And thankfully, the technology is available everywhere. If you go on the internet now, you get all the technology you want. If you go to China, you get their technology. How did China develop? They went to the US, to the UK, to Europe, bought, stole, or whatever, the technology, and brought it to China and studied it, refined it, improved it, and reproduced it. So thankfully, we have technology. So wherever there's technology, let us bring to Nigeria. That's what our leaders should be doing. Okay? Singapore developed simply or by inviting people who had knowledge to come and start industries in Singapore. Simple. And they made the environment conducive for them. If I was president of Nigeria, okay, Volkswagen must have a plant here. Mercedes must have a plant here. Nissan must have a plant here. Toyota must have a plant here. I will give them 4, 5 years, 10 years to have a plant here. I will not allow them to just keep dumping cars in Nigeria as they want. If they had plants here, if they want to do CKD for a while, no problem. But at least I will make sure that 5, 10, 20,000 people work in that plant. But right now, we're using all our money to fund industries and pay salaries for people
in other places. Just a quick thought on the 2019 elections. It has come and gone. You know, what lessons do you think we need to learn or unlearn if we have to grow our democracy and electoral process?
Well, the good thing about the democratic process is that it's getting better and better, to be honest. And that's what it is. You know, part of Nigeria's problem was that our democracy was truncated. And therefore, the good people faded away and they were no longer interested and didn't trust the process. Okay? What the first lesson we all must learn is that we all must get involved one way or the other. The least you can do is to register to vote, have information, and decide on who you want to vote for. Not for what you want to eat today, but for what they want to do for Nigeria in the future.
Insecurity is something we've been grappling with in this country, and one of the biggest issues on everybody's mind these days is that of the Chibok girls. It's been 5 whole years, and these girls are still missing, and Leah Sharibu seemed to be towing same line, becoming somebody that we're still asking for them to return. 5 years, nothing from the government. Seems efforts are not as strong as it should be. Do you think there is hope that these girls will be returned?
And when there's life, there is hope. My concern is the level of determination by the government and the level of commitment and effort to driving this process through. Okay, by now we should have information as to where the girls are, who is holding them. They had this convergence for Chibok girls that it's like the story in the Bible where the people were eating their children, and the king seemed helpless. So they had to go to God in prayer and say, God, you have to move the hand of this situation. And he responded. But aside from that, I think it's also time now for self-help to some extent. We need to wake up the international community. We need to wake up everybody and ask for help. There must be help from somewhere. Said she wasn't going to convert. So we need some people to give us answers. And if indeed they have no information, then they...
No, this time it has moved some sort of sign.
I think that